So we had the PBS debate recently, Democratic debate, and CNN has been relentlessly trying to push Amy Klobuchar on us post-debate. They're going to cover a focus group here, but let's just say this focus group is not indicative of what their audience thinks. So take a look, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to give you some of the audience reactions, the comments on YouTube, which are hilarious.
We've watched all the presidential debates with the same group of Iowa Democrats.
Who do you think did best in this debate?
Amy Klobuchar.
Klobuchar.
Klobuchar. Klobuchar and Biden.
Klobuchar and Biden.
Klobuchar and Warren.
Klobuchar.
Klobuchar and Warren.
Klobuchar.
Sanders.
Klobuchar.
Amy Klobuchar was picked by 10 of these 11 Johnson County, Iowa Democrats.
She just comes across as having thoughtful, specific answers and not rehearsed talking points.
When the other ones were, bickering, she was there to diffuse it and bring focus back on why they were there.
Another consensus among this group, the belief that Joe Biden had his strongest debate.
His answers were direct. He stayed focused and just reminded me of the 8 years under Obama. I mean, that brought those memories back for me.
What was the most important moment of the debate for you?
Well, this is a little bit of a macro perspective, but I've been waiting a long time for a woman president in the United States. I'll be 75 on Monday. So
Happy almost birthday.
Thank you. I am so excited to see two women on that debate stage who just did so well, and I am so proud of them, and I think either one of them would be a magnificent president.
I'm going to get to the comments in a second, the YouTube comments, because it's hilarious. But first, let's address some of what they're saying. I'm gonna go ahead and put aside the whole rant that I could give right now on the priority of identity over policy. Let's just be kind to that woman and assume that she also is genuinely centrist, which is why she's willing to say, oh, I just want a woman president and Klobuchar is wonderful. But that's me being a little too kind, to be fair, because she said, oh, I'll take Elizabeth Warren or Amy Klobuchar. Their ideologies are pretty far apart. Elizabeth Warren is significantly to the left of Amy Klobuchar, regardless of what criticisms we all have of Warren, and I've voiced them before on the show, but she's definitely to the left of Amy Klobuchar. So that lady is quite literally prioritizing identity over policy because she's willing to support two totally different candidates with totally different ideologies with a valley in between their beliefs because they're both women. So, but anyway, I digress from that. Did you notice something about that group there? That's not quite indicative of the voting population now, is it? It is overwhelmingly older voters. So, wow, look at that. When you have older voters, it turns out they're not fans of Bernie Sanders. And they also happen to find like all of Amy Klobuchar supporters right there in that room. So, I mean, that's the first point. And then the other thing I'd say is, one of them says Amy Klobuchar gave, quote, thoughtful, specific answers. What debate are you watching, man? What debate are you watching? Invariably, every single time the centrist candidates do their centrist thing, which is like give some vague platitudes and cliches, talk about like their experience or some goofy nonsense like that, and also just attack the left-wing positions. And this debate was no different. Amy Klobuchar did the same thing. So what do you mean thoughtful, specific answers? She did everything. She was a gymnast to avoid discussing substantive policy. So I'm a little annoyed watching that. However, my faith in humanity was immediately restored because, listen, man, it's CNN. Are they fishing for certain answers? Yes, they are. They quite literally are trying to push the exact narrative that we thought they would try to push, which is pump out the centrists. Oh, Biden had a wonderful night. Now, to be fair, I think he did have his best debate night, but that's not that impressive. He's still the tallest kid in kindergarten type stuff. But they're pushing Biden and Klobuchar. What did I say? Biden, they would be okay with Biden because he's the centrist and he represents the status quo and a return to normalcy. But then their insurance options are Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar. Mayor Pete had his moment in the sun. Now it seems like the media is slowly turning on him, but they're, again, trying to pump up Klobuchar. Now, the like to dislike on this video, and by the way, there were at least 2 other videos recently from CNN pumping out Amy Klobuchar and trying to like really act like, Klobuchar? Oh yeah, definitely Klobuchar. She's a real serious candidate. Politico had an article. CNN's Chris Cillizza, who's wrong about everything, said, she won by a lot. And then there were at least 2 videos on CNN on the YouTube page where, like, one of them they invited Klobuchar on, and they're like, Senator Klobuchar, how does it feel knowing that you absolutely knocked it out of the park in the debate? It's just so pathetic. But the audience is seeing through it. So this video, which said, 10 out of 11 people say this Democrat won a debate. It has 2,000 likes and 10,000 dislikes. Kind of looks like your audience is not buying what you're selling there, CNN. And here's some of the YouTube comments. When Klobuchar is the answer, it must be a stupid question. CNN trying so hard to push the moderate corporate sellouts. How cute. They gathered all of Amy's fans and put them together in one room. Then we have a classic fake news. Another one came to the comments for the answer since the title is clickbait. Are you trying to tell me 10 out of 11 people in this group said they like Klobuchar? Laugh my ass off. Maybe 10 out of 11,000. Hey, CNN, when you say voters pick Klobuchar, you probably mean Bernie Sanders. When you say Pete Buttigieg, you mean Bernie Sanders. When you picked Elizabeth Warren, you mean Bernie Sanders. When you picked Joe Biden, you mean Bernie Sanders. Heck, when you picked Hillary Clinton, you meant Bernie Sanders. This is glorious. And then you have more fake voters came to dislike. This has got to be BS. Look at that sample size. Impressive. So, the comments immediately brought back faith in humanity. Now, this is where people who are looking to make the case for Klobuchar in the center, they'll turn around and say, okay, but yeah, online is obviously more biased in the direction of Bernie Sanders because online you have younger people. Younger people are more likely to be pro-Bernie Sanders, and that's true. But my response to that is, if the focus group of all old people counts, and by the way, the only young person there was pro-Bernie, then the online comments count just as much, if not more, because there are more online comments. I love it when people say online isn't the real world. It both is and it isn't. It is and it isn't. Sure, it's skewed a little bit because it's overwhelmingly younger people, but it's just as, valid as a senior citizen center. It's just as valid as, a golf club in Boca Raton with retirees. So one demographic is older, one demographic is younger. As long as we're getting everybody out to vote, okay, we'll see you at the polls and we'll see who wins. Bottom line is if you have a large turnout, then Bernie Sanders is definitely going to be the front runner. And I just realized how deep are we into this story now, and I still have the frickin' Trump impeachment graphic over my shoulder because I'm an absolute moron. There's Cloud Boot Jar for you right there. But yeah, I mean, it counts to some extent. We can have a debate over just how much it counts, and I think that's reasonable. But yeah, I mean, clearly people online are going, you're trying to push a narrative on me, and I can see it. And why is it? Let me ask everybody, why is it that you had the LA Times focus group, which we covered on the show? It was a Frank Luntz focus group, and you had definitely a more wide array in terms of demographics in that group, and they overwhelmingly said Bernie won. And, by the way, the polls are not reflecting that Klobuchar is doing so swimmingly and doing so amazingly. So, meanwhile, Bernie keeps going up, keeps surging after these debate performances. Klobuchar keeps, at best, being stagnant. She's not surging. She's been stuck at whatever it is, 5%, a little less than that for a long time now. So, weird that the CNN focus group doesn't really match what all the other empirical evidence tells us. So, but listen, that's why I tell you guys in advance on this show. I tell you in advance that here are the candidates that they favor. And, you could see that their coverage effectively mirrors that. And even though they swear up and down that they don't have an ideology and that they're objective or neutral, no, the fact of the matter is, the filtering comes in the hiring process, just as Noam Chomsky's manufacturing consent taught us. And you don't have they don't hire people who are going to have the kind of opinions that a guy like me has. They're going to hire people who more or less reflect the will of their investors and of the owners of the company. And so they limit the spectrum of debate, which is called the Overton window. And so they try to push out there the idea, the serious candidates. I mean, come on, that's Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden, that's Amy Klobuchar, that's Mayor Pete. Like, these are the people who are the real serious candidates. And so their coverage is reflecting that. And we're going to cover later, some people are beginning to begrudgingly accept the fact that Bernie might have a chance, but there's this resistance to it. Like, no, you're just not serious. That's ridiculous. Obviously, Bernie Sanders doesn't have a chance. There's this resistance that you have to push through when the numbers have been clear for so long now that he's literally number 2 in the polls, solidly. And melting brain Joe Biden is ahead of him. The idea that still to this point, they're still trying to act like, well, we all know it's not going to be Bernie, right? Shows you how deeply biased they are, even though they pretend like they're not. But listen, I'm not telling you to throw out the results here. Klobuchar had a night where she spoke a lot. She filled the room with noise. That did happen. And she was kind of aggressive. If you want to interpret that as a win, by all means, go right ahead. So I'm not throwing out these results. But what I am saying is it really is out of lockstep with the rest of the evidence. And it is worth something that there is such a broad rejection of this narrative from CNN's own audience. And, when I did that, when I covered one of the debates and my takeaway was Cory Booker was like a low-key winner of the debate, you guys didn't trash me for that. Nobody said, mass downvoted a video and said that's ridiculous. Because I think there was enough evidence to suggest, and he performed well enough where I was like, no, he actually did really well in this debate. And there wasn't this mutiny among the audience of that's ridiculous. But with CNN and other corporate outlets pushing Klobuchar, there really is a mutiny. And they're like, stop trying to tell us some what do you believe? Me or your lying eyes stuff. Because we certainly don't believe you. And expect more of this. It's going to keep happening because they need that insurance policy and they want her to be the insurance policy. And so they're really going all in. And they will act like she's above reproach. They will act like she's an amazing candidate. They will act like she's, one of the most electable, which is hilarious that they have this notion, this thing that's regardless of what the actual numbers say and whether or not you're literally electable, we're just going to say that in theory you're more electable because of, fill in the blank. You're from the Midwest. You're a woman. Therefore, theoretically, like Bill Maher said, she could hold the base, but also get crossover voters. You're making all of this up. If she could do all those things, why isn't she doing all those things? So just get ready, man, because there's going to be a lot more of this. But at the very least, I do have to say I'm very happy. I'm surprised CNN hasn't turned off their like to dislike, and I'm surprised that CNN hasn't turned off their comments because this is going to keep happening. The more they try to, blow Amy Klobuchar and Biden to a lesser extent, although even they're kind of saying that Biden's on baby deer legs. And we got to buckle up for your mental health. Just prepare yourself because there's going to be a lot more of this, and it's going to be equally insufferable every single time.